There are a lot of new GPUs announced, both from AMD and NVIDIA. But which is the best for you? Today I'll try to help you choose the best GPU for your needs. Let's start by listing all the GPUs we're going to analyze during this video. As for the NVIDIA side, we've got the Ampere series, which means the RTX 3060 Ti, 3070 and 3080. We're not considering the 3090 because it's just overkill in every kind of task. NVIDIA was able to tune the ray tracing and almost doubling the performances of the RTX 20 series, the Turing series. While on the AMD side, we're gonna analyze the RX 6800 XT and 6900 XT. This is the first architecture, the RDNA 2 from AMD, which is capable of ray tracing, and you can totally feel the first generation impact on performances, because we're gonna discuss about this more later on in the video. But ray tracing is still pretty raw on the AMD side, and NVIDIA makes AMD bite the dust in the ray tracing tasks. But as for the entry level side, we're going to analyze the GTX 1650, 1660 and 1660 Super for NVIDIA, and for AMD we'll have the RX 580, 590 and 5500 XT. Let's start with the entry-level GPUs. These GPUs are meant, of course, for 1080p gaming. You will manage to have high frame rates in esports titles, and you will be able to play AAA games with some compromises. You won't be able to play games with ray tracing, of course, because in this section of the market you don't have any ray tracing capable GPU, but you'll manage to play the latest games with some compromises. With the GTX 1650 and the RX 580, you will manage to play games just fine, but you shouldn't expect very high frame rates. And if you choose the RX 580, yes, you will have higher frame rates, but you will probably most likely have a little oven as GPU, because the temperature on the AMD side are not the best. Both GPUs will struggle to play the latest AAA games at maximum settings, so you will have to make some compromises, but you will still be able to play them at like medium settings. For as little as 150, around 150 euros for the RX 580, this could be the best choice for you. But you also have to take in mind that AMD drivers many times make you create some problems with the system. The GTX 1650 is more stable as for the drivers, but it will cost a little bit more, around 190 or 200 euros. So take that in mind. As for the GTX 1660 and the RX 590, those are great graphics cards, and you'll manage to hit frame rates higher than 100 FPS in esport games. And if you lower a little bit the quality, you will also manage to hit the 134 goals. So if you have a high refresh rate screen, this GPU should handle the frame rate just fine in esports title. You will also be able to play AAA games with not a lot of problems at 60 FPS. As for the RX 580, the 590 has really nasty temperatures, so take that in mind. A change of the thermal paste will help a ton with temperatures. As for the GTX 1660 Super and the RX 5500 XT, this will make you play every game at 1080p with no problems and high frame rates. So if you don't want to play at higher resolutions, these are the best choice for the 1080p gaming, and these cards will manage to play AAA games just fine, esport games even better. So if you want no compromises and at 1080p, this is the best choice for you. Let's start now with the mid-tier GPUs. Both the RTX 3060 Ti and RX 5700 XT will manage to play AAA games at 1440p just fine. You won't have any compromise to make whatsoever, and you'll also manage to play 240 frames at 1080p with no problems in this first title. Many games on these cards, also AAA games, also run at 100 FPS or higher, and the RTX 3060 Ti usually have around 10 to 20 FPS more than the AMD part. But there is another point, and this card is also capable of ray tracing and DLSS, which we're gonna talk about later on the video more deeply. And the RX 5700 XT is of course not capable of ray tracing and DLSS. But another huge difference is the price point, because the RX 5700 XT goes around 400 to 500 both on eBay and Amazon when in stock, of course on Amazon, but you also can find it for cheaper if you buy it second-handed, like on Facebook Marketplace or something like that. While the RTX 3060 Ti has an official price point of 429 euros, but that is just bullshit, because you won't spend less than 600 or 700 if you wanna have it today, and you have to buy it from eBay from scalpers. Let's now talk about the top tier GPUs. This is where things get really interesting. The result of the comparison between the RX 6800 and the RTX 3060. Oh, by the way, I'm using the benchmarks from Benchmarks. I'll leave his YouTube channel in the description down below. Are very interesting because the Radeon card manages to beat the NVidia equivalent in 1440p around 20 FPS in almost every game, and at 4K the gap gets closer, but you can still manage to have between 5 to 10 FPS more. But you have to keep in mind that ray tracing is off, because as you turn it off, AMD cards gets just crushed by NVIDIA because of the experience they made with the Turing series. But there is another thing, because NVIDIA can use DLSS, which enables you to play 4K gaming, but the GPU render the frames at 1440p and then upscale them. So that is not a 4K native resolution, but the image quality is still pretty good, so very playable. The RX 6800 starts at about 600 euros, while the RTX 3060 at 519, but they both are around 800 to 900 actually. As for the RX 6800 XT, that is a pretty nice card, because for only 80 euros more you get around 10 to 20 FPS more on 1440p and 10 FPS more in 4K. I'm not talking a lot about this card because it doesn't have an NVIDIA equivalent, which would be the RTX 3060 Ti or Super, but it hasn't been announced yet. Let's now talk about the top of the line for both AMD and NVIDIA. The RX 6900 XT and the RTX 3080. This card manages to just play 4K games, the latest AAA games at 4K with no compromise whatsoever. Ultra settings, you will manage to score over than 60 FPS, and with titles such as Battlefield 5 and Forza Horizon 4, you will manage to double the frame rate, so over and beyond 120 FPS. And in many games, the RX 6900 XT manages to have slightly better performances than the NVIDIA equivalent, but once again, without ray tracing on and with DLSS off. So, in conclusion, which GPU should you buy? NVIDIA has the DLSS and the and the better version of the ray tracing. So, if you know for sure that you're gonna use these two technologies, just wait till you manage to get an RTX card. The AMD side has, of course, the first generation of ray tracing and the Fidelity FX, which should help boost the frame rates and of the RDNA 2 cards, and if in fact it does. But not a lot of games are optimized for this technology. In fact, some games are Far Cry 6, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Microsoft Flight Simulator. It all comes down to two factors: availability and prices. If you manage to find a GPU, one of the lists that I've talked about today, at stock price and it's in stock, just go for it, because it is gonna be a great deal, especially considering that this unavailability of video cards and all PC parts in general will last months.